Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 53rd episode of Cultist Simulator the Dancer DLC. Now, I just want to say that I'm recording this quite late at night. In fact, I'd say it's early morning for me, and I'm probably going to have to do this in two parts. So for the purposes for the week, we should be fine. But the quality options may not quite be there because of the hour at which I'm loading this up. So if you happen to be watching this video and it's not at the resolution that you normally want to see, I know some of you have commented on that and how it makes it easier to read the text. You may just want to wait a little while for the video to finish processing and have the full resolution options. So my apologies for that, and if there's a delay on Wednesday's episode, that's just because I've had a little difficulty getting things done on time. It also means that I'm going to need to get reacquainted with what's going on here. So we're working on the Lore of the Heart. We have an intuition challenge now. We didn't have a glimmering though, so I think we said that was going to fail one way or the other. Season of Suspicion coming up now. I think I was taking a heart follower, yes, to deal with the mystique, because we're just on the edge of being able to dodge that during the expedition. We're entering the stag door. I think that's because we didn't have a body for the spider's door. And we are finishing the warded door for the expedition. We added Neville. We already have Enid. Okay, so that gives me a kind of a start to work with, at least. Let's unpause. I don't know how much progress I'm going to get through on this session, but we'll do our best. And I think I'll read sentimental literature as soon as I can. Okay, looking good. 102 second. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter which of those two got picked up. So as long as this one gets taken away, I'm pretty sure we are in the clear as far as the expedition's concerned, which is good because that means I can just throw a heart follower to the notoriety as soon as it comes up. All right, so we finished our heart commission. Now, the big deal here is that I don't want to be turning these commissions in right away because of the mystique. I need to go to the Gaiety first. Oops, sorry, as you can see, I'm struggling a little bit with today's broadcast. The stage awaits hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. So the plan is that we want the Season of Suspicion to pass. Following that, we want to get rid of the notoriety that will come from the expedition. Well, I guess it doesn't matter if we get rid of the notoriety, but we're in a good position to be able to sort of clear out every threat early on and then move in, and so that's going to be my intention as far as moving ahead. Actually, now that I remember, it's not weird that we didn't go to the spider's door. It's weird that we didn't go to the peacock door, but that's because we haven't repaired the mirror yet. All right. We bear a great power of opening. Will almost certainly shatter this warded door, calling upon the horned axe who waits at the threshold. My studies have been stymied for now. Okay, so that's a couple of prepped forbidden epics. So we're moving this up to an unresolved ambiguity, so this will give us locations in the Rending Mountains, which is exactly what we're looking for here. Now we've already got a couple that we can work with, so if I want a little extra time before moving on the next expedition, that's an option to me as well. Of course, we have summons, so I may not want to lose those. But because we don't have any books that we're translating quite yet, I'm just going to take my passion and read the sentimental literature. Another way I might be able to get some glimmering would be through doing a painting, but in this particular case, I think the sentimental literature makes as much sense as anything else. 57 seconds, and as long as we don't generate a notoriety, we are good. So, optimism is the spice which saves. Given the fact that I have a little bit of time before we're going to generate the notoriety, it seems like a good time for me to... I'm pretty sure I'm going to mess up the placement that I had for everyone, but it's in between sessions, so I get to realign everything. So it now seems like a good time to take one of my Forge followers and repair that mirror, because, again, as long as we don't have to worry about the investigation for 53 seconds, so that'll mean that basically we have either two 30-second events popping up, or I guess technically a 45, although those are rare. I think there are some that do it. But one way or the other, because we don't have the notoriety to pick up, and I don't have quite the same pressure that I would under other circumstances, it's not a bad time for me to get the mirror repaired. So significant conversations in a smoky meeting room. What do I need from my follower? We can begin to repair this, but it will take at least a bronze spintrea to purchase the necessary materials. Okay, so a Forgotten Chronicle. I can't recall if I needed that or not, so let's try the Painted River. And we got a Forbidden Epic if I'm so inclined. Well, it does make the number odd again, and unfortunately I didn't read the text. My apologies. So I'd like to go to the Peacock store, but we're not quite there yet. I think maybe another Stag Door trip? Maybe we'll just leave it be for now. I don't have as much that I need from either of these. Okay, Season of Vision's coming up, and all doors must open as all lives must end. This door has found its end here today. So the reason why I'm holding off on the dream slot is that if I'm only going to be going through the Stag Door, I don't quite have the same need for Forbidden Epics that apparently I did mess up the ordering. Tonight I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. I am a listen package of flesh and blood. Tonight they'll notice that. But yeah, so the trick that I need to worry about is the I need to worry about Seasons of Visions, and if I don't, so I don't know. Like, we will be working on Forbidden Epics. We will be upgrading them, but the path to getting these upgrades is a bit longer than what I would normally want to take. So getting the risk. So once upon a time, going through the Stag's Door would make a lot of sense. Pretty much, I'd have that on automatically. But most of the trips that I want to be making are actually at a higher level, either the Spider's Door or ideally the Peacock Door. And so, as a consequence, you know, when you think about, well, what's the risk that I run into? Well, something like, you know, getting a fascination or, you know, what have you. In these cases, I'm a little bit more relaxed in terms of having the idle dream slot. Although in a perfect world, I'd just have more mirrors and be going through the Peacock Store. But one way or the other, let's go on to our Secret Histories commission. That's not a good one. Let's take the Forgotten Chronicle. So the reason why I switched that out was I would like to use the the unresolved ambiguities and finding more locations. And we've got a Course of the Heart and the Light the Dark. So this would have gotten me my Glimmering as well. Of course, we can't know when that's going to come up, so. And I passed the time. I've been inclined to tears and afterwards inclined to laughter. Meanwhile, the world continues. So one thing that's kind of nice, we haven't really talked about this explicitly for a while, I feel. But one thing that is kind of nice about the study system that was implemented after the release of the game is that even though there are multiple challenges to pass now, if you pass one of them, you don't have to do it again. So in this case, we have already passed the knowledge, we need the intuition, and so I have a Glimmering here. I don't need to worry about getting a combination of erudition and Glimmering each time I want to advance. And so in this case, we'll study the histories, we'll get the last bit that we wanted with the Glimmering, and I'm kind of relying on that, particularly with the headquarters that I have now with the library. I think I'd said this earlier on, is that with the new headquarters, I really only want to be generating Glimmering, and that can be through painting, that can be through study of sentimental literature. There's a number of different ways that I can get it, but it's wasteful at this point for me to be pursuing erudition. Well, not entirely, but for the most part, it's wasteful. My follower needs a broad spitrea or better to complete their task. The reason why it wouldn't be always wasteful is if you look at this, we require illumination, knowledge, and intuition. So if I feel like I'm going to have to use the library for other purposes, then all of a sudden it's really smart for me to have some erudition lying around. Okay, Season of Vision's coming up. And the Weary Detective is currently considering the evidence, so I don't need to worry about that. And we've got Dread potentially coming up. This may have implications if I go to the Peacock door. But otherwise, I think we're fine. Oh no, sorry, that's notoriety. The coming of the wolf, the whispering of the dead is quiet, but another sound echoes in the mausoleum. A faint descending howl, like metal tearing in the hull of a ship, dropping in pitch until it churns our bones. It could almost be the wind, but it is not. We should not stay long here. I'm safe for now. My adversary has not enough evidence to bring a case against me, and they've found no new clues. Okay. The mirror is repaired. It shines again as it did once before. Thank you, Tristan. So I think let's... Again, we run the risk with the dread, but let's go with what we've got. Here's our Wildering Mirror, and we will use that. The Peacock's door reflects the mirror I hold in my sleep, and the mirror reflects the Peacock's door. Already a sensuous shiver ripples its surface. It aches for fracture, and when it finds that satisfaction, I will enter. Okay, so the question is, what do I do with the talk verb? In this case, it makes a little more sense to have a heart follower working on the reputation, because the expedition's about to finish. There will be a notoriety on the table. We know we don't need to worry about notoriety in the next 30 seconds because we'll have a season of despair, but it's still not a bad idea to get the notoriety off the table, especially when I plan on turning in some of these commissions, and we'll have Mystique to contend with. So not everyone is sympathetic to our aims, but if we have problems with our reputation, our disciple can probably smooth them over. And how are we doing? So I finished the manuscript. That's the Secret Histories for Dr. Redeem. And I'd love to do the Forge, but we do have a job to go to. The stage awaits, hot and clean and bare and bright. If I move the moves and step the steps and do what is required, they'll pay me. The chill in the air deepens until our skin crisps with ice. At the core of the mausoleum is a white marble bowl upon a granite plinth. It is filled with snow whose touch burns the skin, and buried in it, items of note. Were they concealed here, or were they offerings? Nothing beside remains. So, as the sun has course, so this is in Aramaic, this is something that we're going to be able to translate. We have 3 wolf snow, so that's an ingredient that we can use. Far too cold ever to melt in anything but the hottest noonday sun. It will very gradually consume human flesh. So we don't quite have the need for winter, but it's still not bad to take a look. The Velshorn Inscriptions. This is a big one for us. Hundreds of matching lines in Greek and Frisian poetry copied from a wall, similar or identical to the inscriptions of Cal Velshorn discovered in Halicarnassus. And if we speak Greek, which we do, we can use this as a key to Frisian. So instead of summoning one of the name emanations of the Grail, we can now just do it the old-fashioned way and read a book. But we have another language which we can't handle, which is a second glory. So that's in Deep Mandiac. And we have a bunch of followers, so thank you very much, Neville. You've done well. Enid, thank you as well. Violet. Claire. Well done. Alright, so I think I've probably messed this up a little bit. Actually, no. Dorothy went there. What am I talking about? Excuse me a second. Okay, so the big challenge here is the matter of getting extra expeditions. So if I want to try and deal with the... if I want to try and get the extra locations, I'm going to need to... I'm either going to need to resummon the Callagine and eventually the Percussagant. I mean, the time difference between the two isn't that large. The other risk or the alternative is that I run Hunter's Pits and the Eye of Ikirmawi. And then the drawback to that is just we generate a bunch of notoriety, so the whole job of clearing out the notoriety maybe doesn't last as long as it did. Now again, I've never wanted notoriety to be deciding what I'm doing turn over turn. So I think just because I have other things I need to do and I've been neglecting getting influence, which of course might have been something I could have done through the Stag Door. In this case, I think I'm going to use the Percussagant and the Callagine to deal with Hunter's Pits and the Eye, and then we'll see where we're at. The nice thing is I don't need to rush a lot of expeditions right now because it might seem like we don't have that much to work with. But once we read the Velshorn Inscriptions, it's actually the Vincent Inscriptions, the Burning Woman, and the Book of Thrones. Sorry, there's another one. And then a Catalog of Uncharted Pleasures. All of these become available to us. Sorry, and the Concursum Diaries. Okay, so pretty much all of our books, well, that's overstating it, but a considerable number of our books become available to us. So I'm going to slightly adjust the order. So I do want to put the Book of Thrones ahead because that will get me Secret Histories. Everything else I think I can work without for now. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with where we're at in terms of these works. So we will certainly not be going to the study verb for Secret Histories for a while, unless of course we really need expeditions. But we can deal with that in other ways. The Hunter's Pits, the Tearing Tribes enlarged this cave systems, digging shafts, preparing traps. It may have been a place of execution or a proving ground. In either case, it's sacred, and the tribes won't want us here. If we survive them, there is still one more terror in the cramped tunnels. So my guess here is we're probably looking for things like Forge and probably Knock at some point, but we'll see what the expedition gives us. Again, these kinds of considerations aren't as important given the way that I do expeditions. Now, you have lots of options, and I'm going to argue here that the way that I do my expeditions is very much one of these cases where my over-familiarity with the game is probably hurting some of my choices. So, in general, I think it makes a lot more sense to bring followers than summons on expeditions now. And this is for two big reasons. One, the wound system. So not only is it less costly to lose followers, but it is in fact enhancing to have them be wounded. They're more reliable. Obviously, I'm not going to be redirecting my attention as far as the Percussagant and the Callagine are concerned. And when, I'm not going to be letting the timers determine when and how I'm going to do certain actions, which I think is a good place to be. But I also think if you, I believe if you have a prisoner, I think you can convert them now, which has given us something that we haven't had in the game for a while, which is sort of a way to deal with the loss of a large number of followers. So, I think it would be difficult to do, but I think it is possible to sort of wipe out your cult. And in that case, you're going to be relying on summons, which might actually make the game quite difficult. Now, the thing is, if you wipe out your cult, unless you're deliberately going out of your way to make your life difficult, usually you've done that to get something. And of course, there have been some ways to bring people in, but it's a limited way to bring them in. Basically, you can't get the numbers that you sort of have here. So in general, I sort of think that if you were to be starting off from the very basic level with Cultist Simulator, probably bringing followers on expeditions make a lot more sense. But again, I don't think, even when I play some more reckless characters, I as a person am a little bit more risk averse in the game. But maybe not a little is overstating it. Or understating it. I am very risk averse in this game. And so, again, it's just one of these ones where I've always sort of anchored my expeditions with summons. But honestly, not only has the game given you an incentive to actually bring people in on expeditions, but It's even gotten rid of sort of the biggest loss that you would experience in terms of, well, it hasn't fully gotten rid of it, but the biggest loss that you would face is actually something that's easier to repair. The other argument, the one argument for continuing with summons, by the way, other than just the sheer power that you get, because it's tough to get somebody with 8 heart unless you are a certain type of cult. But the one argument for continuing this way is that not tying up your followers in expeditions are a way that you do have them available for talk and other activities. But I'm not entirely convinced that that's, I don't think that's a slam dunk argument. I mean, in the end, you're going to do what you feel most comfortable with, but certainly the Percussagant and Callagine have been overused regardless of what we have to go up against, because I generally don't use my followers that much. The trap labyrinths of the Tearing Tribes. We'll have to scale the mountains and battle our way through the tribes. After that, no doubt, there will be something else. So the reason why I said, basically, we don't really have to read that carefully as far as the location descriptions are concerned, because in the end, we know that we're going to have a base level of of sort of aspects no matter what, and following that we know that we're going to have it's a puzzle with missing pieces. I might find those pieces in odd corners of scholarship. So by the time we know what we're up against, we're going to be able to pick individual followers. But of course, if I was picking the first 2 followers I was bringing in, I'd like to have a little more certainty in terms of what I'm bringing in. Incidentally, I do think that's why for things like the Rending Mountains, mountains kind of already give you a big hint, but it's why I think for some of the particularly the later locations, there is a, usually you'll have like the woods, the mountains. Later on, there's some heart locations. I think in general, this is a nice little way that you don't get too surprised about what's coming up. In any case, Forge makes the most sense for us, so we'll add Velsine onto this expedition. Then we'll add one of our skin twisters for the Watchers, and then finally the younger sister. So with that, we will bring a couple of Nock followers. There it is. Is that it? Tonight I sense an opportunity. Tonight I could attract attention if I cease to hold back, if I commit myself more fully. I am a listed package of flesh and blood. Tonight they'll notice that. I felt all their eyes upon me. Afterwards I received a gift from an admirer. Too gaudy for my tastes, but I can sell it on the second-hand market. Okay, so let's do our Forge commission. We're going to be a little short on commissions after our next trip to the Gaiety, but we knew that was going to come up. Alright, I'm definitely not ready for a Splendor. It is tempting to try for the Worm Museum, but in this case I will do the Red Church. Alright, that turned out. Vagabonds Map. The Peacock Door unsealed. I saw the Red Church again last night, with its pews of bone, the stained glass in shades of ruby, the golden altar that beats like a heart. That night, the names of the Grail gathered to speak of those long who'd sworn off the pleasures of the bedchamber, save between man and man, or woman and woman. They still pay the tribute of delight, an Ivory said. They do not bear fruit, a Lovely said. If Forge and Sun had only joined, a Thirstly lamented. And then they fell to gossiping of the House of Leith and their deeds in the desert. I remember it still. So incidentally, I know I've not spoken as directly about some of the lore things, but here's another great example of one of the things. There's some passages which I find a little bit more helpful in terms of, if I'm sketching things out and trying to figure out what's going on. There are a few that I find to be these really good sort of keys that wind up leading you on a particularly fruitful train of thought. I think in some cases this might be an individual thing, but in a few of them I think there are some which are maybe a little bit more informative than others, and in this I think this is one of them here, so we'll read it again. I saw in the Red Church again last night, with its pews of bone, the stained glass and shades of ruby, the golden altar that beats like a heart. That night, the names of the Grail gathered to speak of those long who'd sworn off the pleasures of the bedchamber, say between man and man or woman and woman. So, again, names of the Grail. And we have a list, so an ivory, a lovely, a thirstly said, and then gossiping of the long of the house of Leith and their deeds in the desert. So what we do here, right, is that we say it's like, okay, so if we want to know, so there can be a few different points at which you reach this. One, you may want to be figuring out what the names are. I guess you can also say, well, what about the long? It's like, well, I'm not entirely sure there's that much. I feel like the references to long are, you can get them from similar places. I'm pretty sure it's in a book, more than one book. But with that in mind, right, if you want to try and find out more about the names, you now actually have 3 items to connect them to, and this has nothing to do with what they're saying. It's just simply the kind of the name and the connection, or well, sorry. Specialized terms in this game always make it difficult to discuss. But these are the ones which I really like whenever I'm trying to put things together, because what I tend to do myself is I'll make these individual notes and I'll try to draw the connections, but sometimes I will write something down and I don't have as solid a connection. In fact, I mean, in some of the previous episodes, what I liked to do is try and give some of that free association. And unfortunately, I think some people did seem to like it, but it unfortunately reacted or provoked a type of comment that really made it a drag to keep doing. And so in these cases, I like talking. I still want to try and do that discussion, but try and do it in a way that doesn't like stop it to be fun for me. And this is one of these cases here where I can sort of say, like, when I'm kind of working with the soup of my understanding, right? And I think that's kind of the fun of the game, which is, in fact, you can, over several playthroughs, keep filling in that map that you make for yourself. And part of the fun can be maybe just doing, like, I think for a while I used to have sort of dotted lines. It wasn't like a UML diagram, but there'd be dotted lines for, like, I think this is a connection, but I haven't actually found the item that's going through. I think eventually I need to find some of the notebooks that I was keeping for that, because I've lost a bunch of it and I certainly don't remember it anymore. But one of the things that I think I started doing was actually starting to make notes of specific works that I identified things in. And part of that was just a note for myself to say, it's like, okay, so when you're thinking about this topic and you happen to have this work on the table, it's really helpful to know that this is something that you've found useful before, and maybe you can make another connection. So if you're so inclined, that's something I've found kind of fun and useful for me. Vagabonds Map. The Vagabond is the one hour who can never enter the mansis, but she goes everywhere else. And if you believe her boasts, she's the only one who knows all the histories. Sometimes she lets someone record her travels. Okay. So we can't go back to the Peacock Store. I think I am going to go back to the Stag Door, though. And this is partly just recognizing the fact that I, maybe not this time around, but within the next couple of rounds, I'm going to want a resummoning of some kind. Our forge skills represent plenty of expertise. We'll almost certainly make it through. So I'm going to be a little more bold and start adding some of my knock people. No one understands us, or else they understand us too well. So that's unlucky there. That might be... I don't know if it'll be something. Well, it's a hold-up for the commissions now because I don't have the talk verb available, but... I am alone, but there's peace in that also. I've increased my knowledge of the secret histories behind the ones we know. Secret histories behind the one we know. So I've got 3 unresolved ambiguities. I don't think there's 3 more locations, but I can never remember the number. Like, I can play this game 100 times, and I'm still not going to remember. I'm still not going to remember the order. So Let's start The Sun Has Its Course. I know I'm getting close to the end, so we're almost certainly not going to be able to see... Actually, you know what? We're right at the end, so... I'm sorry, again, like I said, I'm actually recording this very early in the morning, and I wanted to try and make sure that the video is ready, so I think I'm going to call it here. I know it's not exactly 30 minutes, but it would be nice for me to be able to get the As the Sun Has Course, to be able to get all the text read in one video. And I'm in a pretty decent shape to do that. As far as the rest of the playthrough is concerned, we did get through one of the expeditions, which is nice. Most important, the biggest advancement here was to get the Velshorn Inscriptions. That one was a big one for us. And then I think Vac is probably just a matter of time. So it's really Deep Mandiac, which we're sort of held back on, and I have the option of bringing that in if I was so inclined. But again, I don't need to rush this sort of stuff. As far as these books are concerned, this is going to take us multiple expeditions. Even if I'm slow in getting the expeditions done, it's going to take us quite a bit of time to translate and read all of these works. So getting the Frisian is more or less locked up my study verb for the indefinite future. And then, of course, depending on the works that you're reading, they are going to have certain side effects, especially once you're getting to this level. It's not just glimmering and erudition that you get from books, but these are more likely to produce dread and fascination, and so those can be used as inputs to things, but they're also potential threats depending on the time that I read them. So we'll see how it all turns out. But the next little while, as much as looking for expeditions, is really going to be spent going through the works. Yeah, with that in mind, thank you very much for watching. As always, Tuesdays are a free day for me, so there will be an upload for the regular broadcasts, but not a Cultist Simulator upload. If you're just looking for those, that will be back on Wednesday. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in a couple days.